Nobody works harder to get a politician elected than the campaign staff. Nobody does.
The people of the United States have not failed. They want direct, vigorous action.
I asked GPT, what do staffers on campaigns deal with? Because I don't know anything about this, right? Okay. So a lot of the stuff that you mentioned already when we talked, overworked, underappreciated, low pay, high cost, burnout, mental health stuff kind of that goes along with that.
Yeah.
Inside the campaign, the day-to-day grind, unseen work that makes the campaign run, last minute strategy changes, how campaigns exploit passion, which I think that's interesting. What needs to change in the political industry? Should campaign jobs be regulated? I don't know. Interesting stuff. So unionizing?
Yep.
We'll talk about it. Advice for future campaign workers. I don't know. There's a lot in here. Even
yeah, these are perfect. These are the stuff I want to talk about.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then I guess, is there this thing that's called the campaign addiction phenomenon? Is this something you've heard of or maybe experienced? Why some people keep coming back to campaigns despite the brutal conditions? Does that seem like something that kind of exists out there?
I've never heard that term, but it sounds like I might be an addict then. Yeah.
You've been is it right to say like a political operative, or does that not?
I have been a campaign staffer.
Yeah.
For a number of years. So I'm from little tiny town in the mountains of Pennsylvania. Grew up, and they say in Pennsylvania, there's on one side you got Pittsburgh, on the other side you got Philadelphia.
Yeah.
In the middle you got Alabama.
No kidding.
I'm from the Alabama part.
That's cool. I just stayed at the Omni
Bedford Springs. That's where I'm from. Bedford, Pennsylvania.
I was literally just there like 2 months ago.
That's my hometown.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was beautiful. We went
it's
over
like a
to
little Hallmark town.
Yeah, it really is.
It looks like a Hallmark movie.
It really does.
I love it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. We loved it. I was there with my wife. We stayed at the resort, obviously, for a while.
My dad helped build that, the springs. The Omni Springs, yeah.
Like there was that big remodel job that they did after the flood.
Well, the flood happened like back in the 30s, and then it stayed like that.
Empty for a long time.
Yeah, because nobody could. Well, so they tried to like remodel it and stuff, but like it just cost too much to maintain it and stuff. And then that rich guy from Texas came in the early 2000s and was like, he made a deal with the Historical Society, and
that's cool.
And so they hired a whole like army of local construction crews, and my dad was on that crew. So
small world.
Yeah.
What a small world. Okay. So back to the politics.
Right. So then I went into the military after that.
Yep.
Got my GI Bill, went to Penn State, graduated with political science pre-law, and then started working immediately afterwards, started working on campaigns. And ever since then, I've been doing an election cycle every year, sometimes multiple ones, because, sometimes there's like primaries and then you lose. So then you go on to a different campaign. And sometimes I'm working for a candidate directly, like the campaign I just finished. Sometimes I'm working for an organization that does campaign stuff, but yeah, it's always very similar work.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have different positions. Like I just finished as a campaign manager for a congressional race. And other times I've been, field director. I've also been, communications director and stuff like that. So, you have different roles sometimes depending on what the need is.
Got it.
Yeah.
So I'll say straight out of the gate then that you're going to give us some pretty interesting kind of inside, behind the scenes, stuff, some dish on, the generalities of what happens to staffers during a campaign, the difficulties and struggles that go along with that. But we're not interested in talking about anybody specifically unless there's something specific that you want to say. So, but I'm really interested in understanding this world better. I genuinely am. And so let's start with this for just a second. What if I decided that I wanted to be like you and I want to be a campaign manager one day? How could I go if I'm a young person, like I'm high school and I think I want to get into this game? I mean, number one, would you recommend it? But if you would recommend it, or if somebody can't be talked out of it, what's the process? I got to go to college for that. How does that work?
It depends, I guess I would say. First, no, I wouldn't recommend it. If you don't have connections, then yes, you got to go to college. But like there are people out there that their father is a lobbyist or their mother is Congressman so-and-so, and they get positions based off of, somebody wanting to get in their good graces,
Just nepotism.
Yeah. And so like that kind of stuff happens all the time.
Sure.
And if you don't have connections though, then you have to do it the old fashioned way.
Okay.
So yeah, you go to school, you get a degree in something related. It doesn't have to be political science. It could be, communications, or it could be business management, or, like something that's just, and whenever you go into campaigning, you will start at the bottom, which is the position's usually called field organizing. That's typically the term that they use. And it's grunt work, and then little by little, like you'll finish that campaign. The next one, you might get the same position, or you might get a little bit slightly more, another one is you may be like a regional field director. So, and then after that, you might get the field director, or you might get just regional field organizer, or you get just
a lot of different kind of titles and things that can happen in a campaign,
right? And they're just like slightly above each other and stuff, and so you just work your way up the ladder from campaign to campaign, and little by little, you someday, whenever you have, but to be a campaign manager though, you have to have had you've had to have worked in basically every role.
Got it.
Because you're not just at that point, you have to be able to do
a certain amount of experience is required with all of that to be able to manage the people that are in those roles.
If you don't know how to do a comm director's role, how are you going to tell a comm director what to do?
Right.
And then if I've only ever been a comm director and then I become a campaign manager, then how do I know how to direct the field director?
Got it.
Right. So you have to have been every single role.
So you got to earn your stripes.
Yeah.
You
to be
really
an effective one.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there are people out there that,
well, if my uncle's a congressman, then I can get on the campaign management
exactly.
team. Okay.
There are, I have seen where people become campaign managers.
Yeah.
And then it's the deputy campaign manager that actually does the job.
Right.
But the campaign manager gets the title.
The title.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. So the campaigns that we're talking about here are, I don't know, not a presidential campaign, but also not a campaign for, like a mayor of a small town either. These are the kinds of campaigns that might be state or national level things just in general. So
sometimes.
Okay.
So I've worked on 3 presidential campaigns. But I also worked on a mayoral campaign that was for a city. And also, so like one of the organizations I worked for was in a territory. Actually, 2 of the organizations I worked for was in a territory. So I got like a bunch of counties all those counties were my territory, and every race that was happening in that county and all those counties, I had to help out with.
Right.
So if it was just a mayoral race or just a state representative race, or if it was a congressional race, like any race that was happening in that territory, I had to help with.
Okay.
Because there would be like let's say, because some of their districts would overlap, and so you didn't want them like knocking on doors on the same days and people getting multiple, or they steal each other's volunteers, or a
lot of coordination goes on between candidate campaigns and kind of these organizations that are sort of helping the campaigns.
There are some organizations that exist to make sure that candidates don't step on each other's toes. And I was part of one of those organizations.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So sometimes, yeah, you are helping out with the very, very smallest races as well.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay, good. So, but that gives us an idea that this is a broad kind of spectrum, like across the board. And I mean, you've worked, just like you said, all the way from kind of like a mayoral, level with organizations all the way to a campaign for
president. Yeah.
President. Amazing. Okay. So great experience, which means that you have a very good insight into what the hell is happening with staffers, because I don't think that people think about what's going on with staffers. I think that people might think about, okay, I understand that there's a candidate, I understand that there's, a campaign manager, and then obviously there's a team of people, either knocking on doors or they're doing this or that. I don't even know if people like that get paid. Are they all volunteers? I think
there is a good bit. There is kind of a notion that most of these campaigns are run by volunteers, but they're not. Volunteers do show up, but volunteers are free labor, as
sure.
As is obvious, and as such are unreliable.
Right.
They might show up, this week and next week and then never show up again. So like if you want to have people making consistent phone calls and knocking doors, then you have to pay them. So like these people, most of them canvassers and field organizers and stuff, yeah, they are on staff. And, typically a lot of the people that you see that are just wearing T-shirts and wearing pins and stuff, you might think they're volunteers because they look like volunteers, and that's by design for the most part. But no, yeah, they're staffers, and they do not get treated well. No, and I think that there's a lot of reasons for that. There's like, number one,
let's get into it. I mean, this is the beginning of the meat of what we're going to be discussing here.
Yeah.
So, you start where you think that we need to hear this. What do you mean campaign staffers aren't treated well? This is America.
Yeah. Well, and not only, so I work for Democrats. So right off the bat, like we should start there, is that I should clarify that my perspective has always been with progressive organizations and Democratic candidates. I do have an understanding for how Republican campaigns are different. I know that they are financially different. I know that they pay their staff differently. Whether that's better or worse, I'm not going to say here for sure because I don't know positively. Sure. But I have my suspicions. I have my experiences with Democrats, so that's what I will speak on. And that being said, it's incredibly disheartening to be a Democrat and to see the kind of abuse that staffers go through. We are the party that's supposed to care about workers' rights. We're the party that's supposed to care about unions and treating people with dignity, and especially our workers with dignity and equality.
Right.
And then the people that literally care so much that they're putting their blood, sweat, and tears, their time away from their families and shit, they're the ones that are abused the most in order to get these people in office. It's very frustrating. And
exploitation of the passion that these young people have for what they're doing.
And right there, I want to point out young people. That's one of the first things that I think is they target young people. They try to get young people to do these jobs because, number one, people with families, people with lives, people with responsibilities like bills and rent and things like that, they exploit these workers to the point that if you had responsibilities such as that, these jobs aren't even possible, right? The only way these jobs are possible is if you just got out of college and you're currently staying with your parents.
why is it not possible for somebody with a family and a baby and a home and all of that? Is it the workload? Is it the fact that you have to work remotely? You might have to go to a campaign out of state? Is it all of the above?
It's for a number of reasons, yes. For one, it's because you have to travel so much, and you always have to go to regions because you go to where the race is at. Okay. And so for starters, the very first organization I ever worked for, not going to say the name of it, but I will say that it is one of the biggest democratic political organizations in the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I was hired right out of college, and when I first started, it was at the very beginning of May, and it was supposed to be all the way until the election was over, mid-November.
Mm-hmm.
They told me from that day until November that I was allowed to take 2 sick days. But
in 6 months.
In 6 months, I was allowed to take 2 sick days.
Okay.
But we did not get a single day off. We had to work 7 days a week.
What?
And we were being paid $4,000 a month.
And there's no like clocking in and clocking out.
No clocking in, no clocking out.
So this doesn't violate some sort of labor law or I mean, I guess
sure it does.
Okay.
Of course.
Or,
Yeah.
or there's some kind of a workaround because,
Yeah, the workaround is that you care about the candidates. You care about the cause, and they know we do.
Is there like some sort of like a contract that has to be signed, or is it looser than that?
The contract is legal, but they expect you to work beyond that
Above and beyond
because
the contract.
Yeah, because you care.
But if you make noise about it, if you complain about it,
Right.
because there's 20 people who are waiting in line.
Right. And you have to remember that. Okay. So I'll get to what I was about to say.
Okay.
So, so that's, how many months is that? 8 months, where you don't have a single day off.
Ridiculous.
7 days a week. And when I was working, I was under the understanding that, it was going to be about 8-hour days. Turned out they were about 14-hour days. And here's another thing is that they don't put you in hotels. They don't put you in even motels. They put you in what they call supporter housing, right? Supporter housing is whenever people that live in the area that you have to go work in, they give you a bed to sleep in. And that can mean anything. That could be they have a basement that isn't even finished and they have a cot down there.
Wow.
And you're supposed to live there for 8 months. And
wow.
Yeah. And so, in most jobs, you would get like per diem or something because, you don't have access to a kitchen. So you can't like pay to do groceries and you have to eat out every day.
Expensive.
Right. It's expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And gas, because you're driving around your territories and stuff. They did not pay for gas.
No reimbursements.
There's no reimbursements for expenses. They did not give us per diem. We had to sleep at people's houses, which is very uncomfortable. Because we're adults.
Yeah, sure.
And we have to, shower in somebody else's shower. We have to like live with strangers. We have to sleep on uncomfortable cots and beds and stuff for months at a time.
Yeah.
And we're getting paid nothing. And the whole idea is, number one, is that these people, they care. These kids, they care about the cause. These aren't just kids that like are just looking for a job.
Right.
Otherwise they would have applied to, Pepsi or,
sure. They get some kind of a corporate
Cannondale
job
bicycles. Yeah. Like they would have went to just make a paycheck every day.
Right.
No, they need people that actually want the candidates to win. Right. Because whenever you're emotionally invested, whenever you're politically invested in them winning, then you're willing to work those 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mm. You're willing to do that because you actually want to see this person in office. Mm-hmm. You don't care about the money. Like, obviously you care about it, but like you're willing to work the extra mile because you want them to win. And whenever it comes to, you asked a question earlier that I was going to get to. Crap, I forget what it was. Because we're now getting to the point that I was going to make whenever you asked that.
Well, that's okay because we're going to get to all of these things. So, but like, I mean, these workers are being exploited, right? And these are young, eager people, kind of straight out of college, talented
I
people.
remember what it was.
Oh, yeah, okay, go.
Okay, you were asking about the families and stuff.
Oh, right, yeah,
And
sure.
why-
If I have some kind of family or
So if
something,
you have a family and,
I can't move to somebody's basement.
You can't be living in somebody's basement while you have a wife and kids that live, 4 states away.
Yeah, right. For 8 months.
And for $4,000. Like that $4,000 like feeds you for that time period. But like that's not enough to have an apartment in another state.
For sure. Yeah, you can't get an apartment. It's just enough to cover your gas and your food and all.
Exactly.
Kind of just expenses.
I am 33 years old right now, and I was just a campaign manager for a race for Congress. It was a federal race. I don't have an apartment right now. All my belongings right now are in storage.
No kidding.
Because there's no point right now. I've been going from race to race to race.
Yes.
So like it doesn't make sense. I've been living out of hotels and Airbnbs for a couple years now.
In a suitcase.
Yeah. So
But you're cool with that.
I don't have a wife and kids.
So that works okay for you for now.
Yeah. And like you said earlier about the campaign addiction, I might be a campaign addict. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before, but once you said it, I was like,
okay, I'm going to bring it
back.
All right, so I'm going to bring it back to you for a second, but then we'll go back, macro again. So why the hell do you keep doing this if, the working hours are really difficult, if the pay is maybe now that you're at kind of that higher level, then maybe it's a little okay. But just like you said, you got to wear a lot of hats and you got to do a lot of things. What would keep you going back? Is it an aspiration to make it to Washington? Is that a kind of a part of what, drives people like you?
There's 3 reasons.
Okay, good.
Am I allowed to swear?
Please do. Please do.
Fuck yeah. All right. So, the first is what you just said.
Yeah.
Campaigning is kind of like going on tour whenever you're like an up and coming rock star.
Okay.
Right? Like you're sleeping in tour buses, you're eating garbage and microwave burritos, and you're not making anything, but you have dreams of making it big someday.
Yeah, got it.
Right. So campaign work is that for up and coming people that have like dreams of making it big in the political world. Right. So they're just like on tour trying to make it big. Right. So like I have dreams of I don't want to be a politician, but I do want to make a difference, and I think that if I do this long enough, I'll meet the right people. I have met the right people to have been offered lucrative positions, but I'm not looking for lucrative positions. I'm personally looking for a position that when I wake up every day, I feel like I'm genuinely making the world a better place. And I haven't found that position yet.
A fulfillment in what you're doing.
Exactly.
Rather than I'm going to go make bank in Washington, D.C.
Exactly. So I'm waiting for that. So that's my rock star dream.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing this. I'm on tour until I find that.
Has that changed for you since you came out of college at 22 and now here you are over a decade later? What it looks like to feel a fulfillment, or what level of impact it will take for you to feel the fulfillment?
Not what it looks like, but my hopes for finding it has...
Is it diminishing as time goes on?
Yeah, I'm getting less and less confident that it's even out there.
Wow.
But, and then the second thing is that I like in between campaigns, whenever, I have like a month, sometimes 2, where I have time to just decompress, maybe snowboard a little, paint, read a book or 2, just relax. I actually find that I kind of fall into a bit of a depression. And that the other day I was driving to Lake County here and for an event and it was like at 7:00 and I was exhausted. I had a really long day and I was so tired and the sun was setting. And I remember thinking to myself man, I'm fucking happy. Like, so I
wasn't expecting to say that.
I don't know why, but like, being exhausted makes me happy. And having nonstop problems to solve makes me happy. So so that's another reason. And the last thing is that I'm just fucking good at it. And I think we like things that we're good at.
Yeah, I get that.
You know?
Get that.
So yeah, those are the three reasons. It's just like, so I guess
It's kind of like you were made for this a little bit.
Yeah,
right.
A little bit.
Look, I mean, there are people who, you know, there's no way I could work, you know, that many hours. There's no way I could be exhausted all the time. There's no way I could deal with one problem after another and deal with all the people that you have to deal with along the way. But then there's that thing that's in you. It kind of lights you up. Like, I like that game.
Yeah.
So, but that will keep you going for a while until you get old like me. And then it's just too tiring anymore. But maybe you'll be in DC by then.
Or maybe something else will happen. I don't know.
Yeah, there could be a change.
As of right now, it's just like I'm currently at the point that like the campaign I was on just ended and I'm already looking for the next one. So that means I'm not burnt out yet.
No,
you know?
I mean, obviously not. You're going to be itching after you go up north, you snowboard a little up there, and then you're going to be looking for the next thing.
Yeah. Well, I've actually already been offered. So I'll probably,
wow.
I might take like a few days off and then I'm going to bounce on another one.
Holy mackerel. Wow. So that's in another state and you're going to be in another place. And
yeah, it's up north.
On the road again. Looking for a basement to stay in. Or maybe you'll get a motel for this one.
I'm going to put it in my contract. They have to at least give me like a nice Airbnb.
There you go. So
with a kitchen.
Oh yeah, that would be, I'm sure, kind of nice to have if it's, I mean, especially if this is going to be a gig that's longer term. You mentioned you probably wouldn't recommend it. So, but there are, maybe junkies like you who are willing to kind of to do it. So I don't understand this thing. I mean, you live in Pennsylvania, but you're in a campaign in Florida. Is there some sort of a world where, like Indeed.com, but for campaigns? Is there some sort of a big infrastructure that exists for being able to find all this? Or is it kind of up to a person who wants to work on a campaign and you just got to start making phone calls and knocking on doors every time you see that somebody's running and hope you kind of get the job, or like a mix of all kinds of different ways to get into it?
Well, to start off, I would start off, if I was going to start off again, I would start off by finding an organization because they're always hiring because there's always races. Mm-hmm. Find a big organization like the Florida Democratic Party or the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, like find one of them and apply there, because
and maybe get your experience in some organization like that and maybe work your way up
and get your connections. Right. Because then once that campaign's over, if you met 50 people while working there, all 50 of those other people that were working for the Democratic Party, they are also going to now spread out and they're going to find campaigns.
Sure.
So then you message them in December and just be like, hey, have you found anything?
Got it.
And if they had, you'd be like, okay, cool. Can you put in a good word? Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So like that's one way.
Yeah. Heavy networking.
Oh yeah. And then another way is keep your ear to the ground. Mm-hmm. Like for example, this past race, I was keeping my ear to the ground, saw that Donald Trump appointed a few people for his cabinet and saw that some of them held offices. Mm-hmm. So I started looking at the offices they held and was just, and then I saw, which races I thought were winnable and which candidates I would be willing to work for and stuff. And so then I applied for the candidate that I liked.
And off it goes.
Yep. And then off it goes.
And then you kind of, you run around on that again, right? So, I mean, not in this next example, you got maybe your next gig through a connection or through something that you already knew. So you didn't have to maybe go through the process before, but.
Yeah, they were, well, they had reached out to me before the primary. They said, hey, if you lose, I have something I need help on. And they said, so if you lose, would you be willing to do this? And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Tell me this. With the things that you've seen on political campaigns and on the trail and, with these young people, how much does this piss you off?
It's disgusting. It's
is it really? Look, okay, so here's why I'm asking. So I'm a doctor, a retired doctor, and I had to go through residency. So that's like a 3-year gig, and I'm paid, $40,000 a year or whatever it was. And, they work us 80 hours, 100 hours a week, and stuff like that. But I had a home and a kitchen and all that kind of stuff. So, it wasn't that bad, but we definitely feel exploited as residents. But that's, a 3-year thing, or it depends on how long. But so I can empathize with the idea that it feels like, I'm being exploited. But here's the problem. I'm only a resident for a few years, and then I'm off and a doctor. And so I don't care what's happened in a residence now. I'm done with that world. I'm over. So, I don't know. It's like, I feel like it's hard to even make a change in something like this because there's like constant flow
cycling
of new people in.
Yeah, it's impossible because not only is it constant cycling of people, but it's literally constantly cycling in the sense that the campaigns start in May, some of them do, and then they end in November, and they literally end completely. The entity that you were working for no longer exists.
Yeah.
Like the entire organization, you're working for Jack Smith for Congress, and on November 10th, Jack Smith for Congress doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, election day.
Right? Gone. Yeah, it's gone. And so now you're just unemployed. And for most people, that isn't even enough time to have accumulated unemployment. So like these people, so these people would tend to end up unemployed without unemployment. They have no benefits.
And they didn't save enough. They didn't make enough to save enough.
They didn't make enough to save, and they just get discarded. And even with these organizations that have races every year, like the Pennsylvania Democrats or the Florida Democrats, where they're going to hire people in February again, where they could just keep the same employees year round.
Right.
It's cheaper for them because then they won't have to pay benefits or anything to get rid of them in November and then hire a new batch of young, bright-eyed kids that don't know any better and get them, because then you don't have to pay them more. You don't have to,
it's a scheme.
Oh, yeah.
That's a scheme.
Yes, absolutely. And it's cheap. And that's the problem is that, because these campaigns are so short, how do you unionize? By the time that they start feeling burnout by August, for them to unionize, I don't know if you've ever unionized before. I did.
I'm a doctor. I'm not allowed to do that.
You're right. I did unionize a campaign once.
Oh, interesting.
I know. But I immediately left. I unionized the campaign
and left the union.
And not the union, the campaign.
Oh, you left the campaign.
I unionized the campaign, and as soon as it was unionized, I quit and jumped to a different campaign.
Oh.
So I got that campaign unionized first. I was already planning on leaving, but I wanted to unionize them first so that they were protected, and then I left. But anyway, it's a difficult process because you have to. There's a lot of legal process. There's negotiations that take place. You have to have secret conversations for a while to get a certain number of staff on board right off the bat, and that alone takes a couple of weeks. So right off the bat, it takes some time to unionize, and then it takes time to be recognized by the employer. And then even if you could manage that in the election cycle, now you're at the crucial part of the election. What are you going to do? Strike?
Right.
You're going to strike right before the election and cause your candidate to lose?
Which goes against the reason that they're on that campaign in the first place.
Exactly.
Because they believe in it, just like you said.
Right.
So
they know you won't unionize. So what is their incentive to treat you well or pay you well?
Well, there is no incentive. So, this is a system that stays broken.
Yep.
Right? All right. So let me ask you this then. When you're on your next big campaign, let's say 2026, and it's something big and awesome, and you've got a candidate that's fantastic, and you are the campaign manager of a high dollar kind of a campaign.
Yes.
In some sort of a general election. How are you going to treat your staffers?
I tried to do a number of things different. I have a different philosophy as a campaign manager than some of my colleagues. I, for one, prefer to use canvassers rather than field organizers.
What's the difference between that for somebody that doesn't know me? Just briefly.
So like a field organizer would be somebody that has a college degree,
Okay.
that their job will be to get a whole bunch of volunteers to knock doors on their behalf.
Okay.
Right. And so you'd have one field organizer and he might be able to accumulate 20 volunteers to knock doors.
So you got a paid, kind of this paid person they accumulate.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
I would much rather just pay 20 canvassers.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
Skip the field organizer. Let's just get 20 canvassers.
Like some sort of a part-time thing for something like that, right?
Or full-time.
Like,
No, they can work
well, I
full-time.
suppose, yeah. I mean, if it's a big enough
and
campaign.
then pay them by the hour. Pay them like on my last campaign, we were paying them at the beginning of the campaign, we were paying them 23. By the end, we were paying them 26 an hour.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Decent. Very decent.
Very decent. Yeah. And so that's what I like to do. I like to spend more money on the field game than, some campaigns like to use a lot of money in communications, such as like billboards and ads and, media and stuff.
Right. What works?
It works for certain candidates.
Okay.
Certain candidates like, well, I almost said his name.
Sure.
There are some candidates that aren't likable.
Right.
Face to face.
Oh, okay. So you sort of have to advertise them at a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, that's that guy up on the billboard.
Or not advertise them at all, have others advertise on their behalf. Right.
Oh, okay.
So like maybe have Donald Trump say like, I need you to come vote for my guy. We need him in Congress,
Yep.
So then have Donald Trump do the ad for him,
Right.
So like, so there are some candidates out there that aren't likable, in which case, you want to keep him away from the voters.
Right.
But if you have a candidate that is likable, like Connor Lamb, he ran in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
He's very likable.
Okay.
So like whenever he was running,
mm-hmm.
you wanted him if you could have him at every door that was knocked, you wanted him there.
The more you get him in front of people, the more he's going to get votes.
Yeah.
Because he's just like
Republican or Democrat, like you couldn't help but be charmed by this guy.
Oh, wow.
He was an ex-Marine,
mm-hmm.
Very respectable, very charming. Yeah, he was just a great guy. And everybody loved him. So, of course, that's what they did. So, it just depends on different factors. But in my experience, for the most part, I prefer field game ops than, comm wars.
Okay, interesting. All right. So you'll treat your staffers better when you get into the big campaigns, and you'll approach the game in a different way, and you'll just because of the principle of it, and because of what you believe, you'll behave in a different way. What happens though if somebody from the party or the candidate that you're working for, if they say, no, I want you working these people 18 hours, we got to stretch everybody thin. Does that ever cause a problem between I'm sure it must be a problem all the time.
And what I did last time was I told them, that's fine. But it's on a voluntary basis, and we pay them overtime.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, so
that's time and a half.
You're right. That starts getting expensive.
Yeah. So if they want to work extra hours, then they can on there. And they did. Like they worked, like whenever I told them, and that's another thing about using canvassers is that they're all local. You're not bringing them in and trying to find them a place in somebody's basement.
Right.
These people get to go home to their families.
Yeah.
Right.
Easier.
Whenever you're hiring these people, they can have families, they can have kids and stuff. You're not bringing these kids out of college and putting them all over the country and expecting them to live off of pittance and McDonald's.
Here's what I worry about with this. Okay. So let's say that I'm a Democrat and I believe in democratic values, and I want Democrats and I want the Democratic Party to kind of I don't know, to get better. That means that we need to recruit and keep the best talent that is coming through the pipeline, through the universities. And you're describing a system that would seem to, I don't know, to expel so many of the talented people straight out of the game, maybe within a year or two? I mean,
what we need to do is
what?
We need to stop giving the field organizers are the jobs that they are doing are jobs that canvassers can do. And the problem is that these people, they get out with the dreams of becoming campaign managers and being DC insiders and stuff. And they're fed those dreams, and that's another thing is that they care about the candidate. And then they're also fed that like, you're going to be a rock star someday. You just keep doing it. You just keep working. You work 80 hours a week. One of these days you're going to be president, like they're fed that kind of stuff so that, and then within 2 campaigns, they're burnout and they're now HR for some local bank at their hometown. Right. And they'll never work campaigns again.
But isn't that a problem that we're losing good people?
Yes. But that's what we're currently doing. What we need to do.
Okay.
What we need to change is do the canvassing thing that I said. Mm-hmm. Okay. So those people aren't getting burnout because they're working and getting paid for the hours they're working.
And they're locals.
They're not getting paid $4,000 a month, regardless of the hours they're working. No, the hours that they work, they're paid for.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
So if they work a crap ton of hours, then they got a big old check at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And then, and they also get to go home to their families and friends and stuff, Oh, yeah, that's another thing is that whenever you're a campaign manager and you're going to these places, you don't have friends and family for 8 months.
Well, yeah, right. Well,
like whenever
they're on the campaign. That's it.
Yes.
Just the people you work with.
No, you don't work with these people. They're all, you get split up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like you get your territory
out of a district.
Yeah. You get a territory of 8 counties.
Right.
You're the only person in that 8 counties.
Oh, okay. So you may not even see anybody that's working in other.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like for that
It's
8
isolating.
months. Yeah. For that 8 months, you don't have family that you see. You might talk to them on the phone or FaceTime them and stuff. You don't have friends unless you make them in that area. And then whenever you do make them, you have to leave in 8 months.
Right. So then you don't want to make them.
Yeah. So it's like, so that's another thing is that it's incredibly terrible in your mental health is that because you just can't maintain relationships.
I'm steadily being talked out of working in politics.
So back to your question about maintaining the skilled people.
Yeah, I mean, how do we keep the talent? So, so you say, all right, so I'm not going to.
So what you need to do is.
So I'm not going to overwork the talent in the field organizer role.
We need to put them in positions that are permanent. We need to create positions such as field director and comms director, and then we need to make them year-round positions, not just positions for a campaign, right? So we need to have consulting firms. And we need to unionize them. Just like, if you're working for, if you're going to make a movie, right, you have to hire certain people to be cameramen.
For sure.
Right?
Yep.
Well, if you want you want a comms director for your campaign, you have to hire comms directors from, people that are certified and unionized to be comms directors, right? And that way, these people are employed year round. They're not unemployed and then reemployed and then unemployed and then reemployed. And there's so much irregularity with their employment that there's no security, and they're just mentally struggling all the time. Like, I don't know if I'm going to even have enough money to get through the month.
In that arrangement, then who would employ these people off cycle between November and May if there's nothing happening? Would they be employed by the party, the state party? Would they be employed by some organization? Would there be some sort of a firm? I mean, where would the money come from to pay for those people? Some sort of a system like that.
That's a great question. And
I mean, that's what needs to be structured.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
It does need to be structured. And
if we want to keep talent, then we as Dems, if we want to keep talent, then we have to come up with some way to keep some sort of steady stream of people, some sort of organization or some sort of a place to pull the talent from.
And it's not like the money's not there. Whenever we're looking at the money, it's just I'm not going to point fingers or anything, but I will say that like it's pretty suspicious how often you look at the budgets of these campaigns, and it turns out that, this media company that just was created last week got offered a $22 million contract with the campaign, and it's actually the brother-in-law of the candidate.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Yep,
Like,
for sure. That must happen frequently.
All the time.
It must happen.
All the time.
On the left, on the right, everywhere.
Yeah,
like
all
all
the time.
levels.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Where this money gets like passed around and stuff where, LLCs are created overnight, and then all of a sudden they're contracted by the company to do God knows what,
Okay, so you need some group of people with integrity that can organize this kind of thing you're talking. I mean, this sounds like a solution. It sounds like the beginning of a solution. Does anything like this or close to this even exist? Isn't there some sort of a union?
There is a union called CWG, Campaign Workers Guild. And I've worked with them in the past. The problem with CWG is that they are, they don't have a lot of resources at the moment. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have a lot of staff.
I mean, they don't have millions and millions that are pouring in.
They don't have a lot. They don't have the ability to compete with a lot of these bigger organizations.
Right.
And, the lawyers for some of these candidates and stuff, and even like other unions. So like, I know that there was a time when I don't remember the details, but I know that there was a campaign that somebody reached out to CWG to unionize their campaign. Well, the Teamsters came in and sabotaged that.
What?
Because the Teamsters wanted to unionize them.
Oh.
So like, and they don't stand a chance against
a huge
organization, a huge union such as the Teamsters.
Right.
So so I know that they just started in, I think maybe 2018. I think might have been whenever they were founded, and so they're brand new. And I love what they stand for, because they stand for what we're talking about. They really want to get the message out that this is a whole secret group of people that do not have a voice. And the thing is that like people don't even know what what campaign staffers do. It would kind of be like if I asked you, what does Mariah Carey's personal assistant do?
Oh yeah, right. Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what is that job?
Yeah, I don't
right?
know.
Well, the same thing goes with a lot of these campaign staffers. It's like nobody even knows what they do. And also, if Mariah Carey's personal assistant wanted to complain, she'd get sued to hell and back.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, right.
Like,
So
same thing goes with these staffers.
Right.
Like, and the only reason why I'm able to talk, so a lot of these staffers, they'll work one, maybe two campaigns and burn out.
Sure.
And so if they came and did a talk like this, it's too easy to track down who they're talking about.
Got it. Right.
Right. But whenever I've worked for as many organizations and as many campaigns as I've worked for, you don't know who I'm specifically talking about.
Right.
So like I have the luxury of being able to do this interview and not get myself in trouble. But for most staffers, they can't come forward. They can't say anything. They get themselves, like the strong arm of the legal system. But one of the very first papers that you have to sign when you work for these people is an NDA. It's.
And you don't want to mess with that.
Oh, no.
So, all right. So maybe we can kind of close it out with some, maybe as like practical advice as you can give to some young people who are kind of at the beginning of a process, at the beginning of a journey. They're maybe a year or two or three into college. They're starting to think about, how am I going to look for my first gig? How am I going to look for the right place, the right job, the candidate? What are the red flags that I need to pay attention to? How do I need to be sure that I get paid and don't get screwed out of my money? Like, is there some I mean, if you had to give somebody like that some kind of advice, I mean, is it even possible? Or is there so many different ways that these young staffers can get screwed that it would be an awfully long document to, I mean, you can't say, I advise you not to work 80 hours a week and you have to push back against that. Well, then they're not going to get to work there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So,
I mean, isn't this who you care about? I mean, that's why you're passionate about this, because you've seen these young people get abused and overworked, and they lose their passion, and we lose good people, and it's just exploitive. And it goes against what we think we stand for as Democrats, just like you said in the beginning. So, that passion is there. So what do we need to say to the young people then? I mean, what can we say?
Fuck.
If anything, I mean, is it a hopeless game, Patrick? I mean, I guess that's what, I feel like residency. I feel like it's a hopeless game. So maybe it is.
I think that our only chance of changing this system is for people outside of campaign work to start saying it's wrong.
Media,
other politicians, people that are not campaign workers need to come out and say, I'm not voting for a candidate that does not unionize his staff or her staff or their staff. I'm not going to vote for a candidate that does not have a unionized campaign manager, or is not working with a unionized consulting firm, or whatever. Right. Like, we need to start saying that we're not voting for them unless they're unionized, because it's just, because you're right, from the campaign workers' perspective. Like, I can give you a little anecdote from 2024 election cycle. There was a gentleman that did his work well. And he was an administrative director in a different territory. Okay. And I was a lead director. And my boss was talking to me about this administrative director and was telling me about, and I knew this person was good at their job, didn't make mistakes. Like, what needed to get done, got done. But he wouldn't do things past the hours he was supposed to work, right? So, like, if a metaphorical fire broke out, he wouldn't come in to fix it. He would wait till the next day to come in and fix it, right? Or if, like, something needed done before he left, and 5 o'clock came around, he left. It would wait till tomorrow. And she was bitching about that, and she was like, and I actually said, because I unfortunately am the type that will be there till 2 a.m. doing shit.
You won't say no.
I know. And I am the type that, you can call me at 2 a.m. and I will answer and then be like, yeah, I'm coming, and I shouldn't be like that. I know I shouldn't. And she said that to me, thinking that because I'm like that I'm probably going to sympathize with her and be, talk smack on him too. And I said, well, good for him. And she goes, yeah, but he's not going to make it very far with that kind of attitude. And I said, he's probably more mentally healthy than I am. And, and she said, yeah, but his career's not going to go as far as yours. And I said, well, it should. So, like, that,
yes,
that goes towards, like, what you're saying. But, like, the thing is that you're always going to have the asshole like me that is willing to wake up at 2 a.m. And so unless you get everybody on staff that leaves at 5 p.m., if you got everybody to start doing that, then maybe you could get the change in the inside, but you're not going to. You're always going to have passionate people. Right. You're always going to have the guy that likes problem solving like me.
Yep. Or who wants to work late to impress the boss.
Yeah. And, I really enjoy the rush of figuring stuff out and, And I also hate the anxiety of knowing that a problem is waiting to be solved. Like once I know the problem exists, like I can't go back to sleep until that problem's fixed, So like, and I can't leave work until this thing is done. I won't be able to think about anything else, so.
Okay, so here's your hard question then. Doesn't that make you a part of the problem?
Oh, absolutely.
Damn it. I think then that qualifies you as the definition of campaign addiction phenomenon then, right?
Yeah. And so we need to start putting pressure from the outside. And, again, I'm going to try to do my part from the inside, now that I have, more senior positions in campaigns, I will always communicate to the candidate directly that like, no, we can't do that, or we have to pay them fairly. They have to be given benefits, anything I can.
Yeah.
But whenever it comes to the outside world, like I hope that this video sheds some light on the mistreatment of these candidates, just like not giving a damn about the people that are working the hardest out of everybody. Like you see all these candidates, they go to these events and they're like, this is all because of you. This is, you guys work so hard. You guys come out and you vote for me, you volunteer, blah, blah, blah. You give your time. And it's like, and that's great that these people do come out and vote and they do care and stuff, but nobody works harder to get a politician elected than the campaign staff. Nobody does. Mm-hmm. And the campaign or the candidates do not give a shit about them. Yeah. They feel entitled to their exploitation. Mm. They feel entitled to like take advantage of these people to the point to where they don't have social lives. Yep. They don't have healthy relationships with family. They don't even have comfortable living situations. They don't have money for comfortable lives. Like a lot of these people, like, whenever they start a campaign and they end a campaign, they don't have any changes in their wardrobe because they can't afford to buy any new clothes. Like their lives suck.
Would we not have more effective campaigns if the campaign staffers were treated well and well fed and had good places to stay? I mean, would we not have better results in our elections as Dems if we kind of made a cultural shift among what happens in staffers, or would that not have any bearing on the result of a campaign? Doesn't matter if staffers are overworked and working 80 hours a week, or if, we break it up. I mean, is there some sort of a material result that would be positive election-wise?
Yeah.
If I had 80 people that were well-rested that work for me, would that not be better than 80 people that are overworked and burn out and running into the last month? What do you think?
What I think is that whenever you have people that are there working with the motivation of money, right? Whenever they know that they're working 80 hours this week because that check is going to be real nice. Mm-hmm. I think that they are going to be more motivated than the person that's working 80 hours and they know they're getting paid the same as if they worked 40, right? I think that the people that get to go home to their families every night and get to hang out with their friends, I think that those people are going to be it's going to take longer to burn them out than it is for the people that haven't seen their families or friends in months and are sleeping in a stranger's basement. I also think that the people that if you have them on staff year round, they're going to be better trained than the people that whenever you rehire a completely new batch of staff every spring. And you have to train them up really fast on every program, every data, minivan, van, vote builder, blah, blah, blah. You have to train them on every single thing and then put them out there. And throughout the whole campaign, they're making a bajillion mistakes because you have to, if you just kept them on staff, they're going to be better trained and they're going to be able to do it a lot simpler and they're going to be smoother and more efficient and not making mistakes, number one.
Yep.
Like one of my cadre in the military used to say, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And if you're not making mistakes, then you're going to be performing better. If you're performing better, you're going to get less burnout. You know, like, so the whole thing is that, yeah, if you're using canvassers that are local, you're paying them by the hour, then you're going to have better results. And then if you have your senior staff, your directors, if you have them working year round and you're paying them like sufficiently for their time, like, and you're paying them per diem, you're giving them Airbnbs with kitchens instead of just motels where they have to eat takeout
or basements.
Yeah. And you're like giving them like legitimate, and they're unionized and they're respected and all that stuff. Like if you're doing that kind of stuff, then yeah, I think you're going to have a lot better, a lot smoother campaigns. So many of the fires and problems that we see on campaigns are from inexperience and are from people that
are exhausted and overworked.
And make stupid mistakes. Like I myself, I'm exhausted right now. Yep. And I think that I made a mistake the other day in scheduling. A mistake that I would never make if I wasn't tired.
Yeah.
You know, like just a small, stupid mistake where I just accidentally put AM instead of PM.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, but that's not a mistake that I usually would make. And it's because I'm freaking tired.
Mistakes like that would compound as well, especially if it's, you know, not just you, but an entire team that it's, you know, like that it's overworked. Patrick, you have painted a clear picture of a problem within the political process. I think you've painted a clear picture of a problem as a party where we could do so much better in treating the people who make these campaigns run better. I would make the argument that a group of people that are treated better and better rested and all of that would perform better, which would give us a better result. I love a solution-oriented approach of why can't we keep this going year round? We keep the pool of talent kind of on staff and running, and we're ready to grab them out of the pool from their thing to go run a campaign here and there, but they don't have the stress of...
And it's just morally right.
Morally right.
You know, we care about, we're always talking about what's ethically right whenever we're talking about steel workers or coal miners or teachers. You know, we have unions for everybody. Like even as Democrats, you know, like it's a cardinal sin to buy yard signs from any printer that isn't union printer. Right? Like if you are buying your yard signs from a non-union printer, oh, how dare you? Right?
Yep. I hear you.
Then we turn around and we exploit our campaign workers. So like, yeah, from a
hypocrisy.
It's hypocrisy. If we want to have the moral high ground whenever we're, you know, pointing our fingers at Republicans and telling them that they don't care about workers' rights, maybe we should care about workers' rights.
Time for us to start acting like it.
Yeah.
I think the first, just like you said, a problem like this, a big problem like this, and any problem like this, the first thing is awareness, casting a spotlight on it. You're a brave man to come and talk and kind of expose a little bit about what's going on in this world, and I applaud your efforts. You're a good dude. Yeah, just wrap it with that, right?